Trevor Zegras, one of the brightest young stars in the NHL, and a name that sparks plenty of debates among fans and analysts alike. Best known for his insane highlight reel goals, specifically his ability to execute the lacrosse deke called the Michigan, Zegras has flashed a new type of talent that draws viewers to the rink. But while some rave about his high skill level and enjoy the level of creativity that he brings to the game, others argue that this player is incredibly overrated and lacks the ability to consistently produce for a team each season. This year, Zegras has been off to what feels like a disappointing start, and with the Anaheim Ducks having a very young and talented forward core, it seems like fans and critics are gearing towards what could be a potential Trevor Zegras trade. So today, let's talk about Trevor Zegras, whether or not he is an overrated player in today's NHL, and why the Anaheim Ducks may just be willing to trade this player before the season ends. So let's break down the discussion surrounding Trevor Zegras to help us determine whether or not this player has been overrated or simply overhated. In order to do that, I'm just going to be looking at a few things today. First, just the overall makeup of this player, his statistics, his profile, and whether or not he's a good player on both the offensive and defensive side of the ice. Second will be expectations and hype, why people consider Trevor Zegras to be such a young superstar, and how he became such a mainstream player nearly overnight from when he started in the World Juniors. So that's exactly where we're going to start today. Drafted 9th overall by the Anaheim Ducks back in 2019, Zegras quickly gained attention for his dazzling skills and playmaking ability. His performance at the 2021 World Juniors, though, is really what set him apart from some of the other prospects in that tournament. He led Team USA to a gold medal and elevated his status even further by mainstream hockey media. Fans and analysts expected him to be a game changer in the NHL, and while he did showcase some jaw-dropping moments on the ice, the expectations set for him were just sky high from the start. Through his first couple of seasons in the NHL, it felt like Trevor Zegras was seamlessly transitioning into the league, becoming one of the faces for the Anaheim Ducks almost overnight after being drafted. In his rookie season, he had 13 points playing in 24 games. Year 2, he started his initial breakout with 61 points in 75 games played. Year 3, he continued to trend in the right direction with 65 points in 81 games played. And this was the season where Trevor Zegras' hype and mainstream success was at an all-time high, with the player becoming the cover athlete of NHL 23. Following his third year in the league, this is where things started to get a little bit dicey for Trevor Zegras. He and the Anaheim Ducks started to go through a contract dispute, and while there were some players out there who felt like Trevor Zegras was one of the best young talents in the league, there are also some who felt like there were some question marks regarding his two-way game and his consistency in production. So in order to get back on the ice, both the Ducks and Zegras held out for most of training camp, but eventually signed a new bridge contract, 3 years, $17.250 million, with an annual cap hit of $5.75. For a young talent who had an incredible amount of potential, this was a great deal for the Anaheim Ducks, but also an opportunity for Trevor Zegras to prove the type of player that he was capable of being and earn an even bigger contract down the line. This last season, mainly because of injuries and of course the contract dispute, he only managed to tally 15 points in 31 games played, which was a pretty significant drop off from his production a year prior. This season, he's also off to a rather slow and disappointing start, considering there are few excuses for his production being down. The Ducks have played in 9 games at the time of this recording, and Zegras has managed to put up only 2 points during that stretch. He also has been a pretty big defensive liability through these 9 games, having a -4 on the season so far, and looking a bit lost in defensive scenarios. So now that you know all of the numbers and why these expectations exist in the first place, let's take a look at some of the main points as to why people think Trevor Zegras is overrated, to see if there's any validity to all of these arguments. First critique is the sustainability of skills. Critics say that while his highlight reel plays are impressive, they question if he can consistently produce at a high level over an 82-game season. While I do feel like this is somewhat of a fair knock, no, Zegras isn't going to have a Michigan every single game, I think that it's just a little bit silly to expect a player to play at this level every single night when these goals are honestly one of the hardest ones to score in the league. Now, when I see Zegras play, his line mates are constantly involved on the offensive end. He He's lifting his team up, and from what I see in articles and just in the media in general, his teammates seem to love his personality and think he's a strong leader. I also see that he's very gifted at creating space against defenses, something that I feel is very important for a player who's on the smaller side. Now, do I think he can improve with his consistency? Yes, of course. But at the same time, I don't think that he's so inconsistent that it hurts his game or his teammates. Now, in case you missed it, Zegras has been working on developing other areas of his game to become more of a two-way center, which of course can take time away from some of his production on the offensive end while he's learning. This leads perfectly into the next critique about Trevor Zegras being overrated, which is his defense. Some analysts argue that Trevor Zegras' defensive game is a complete liability, something that you can't have if a player is expected to be your cornerstone guy. I'm not sure if anyone remembers this, but a while back Trevor Zegras was benched after a slew of defensive mistakes. This has and still is one of the biggest weaknesses of this player, but I could argue that he's improved a lot compared to his rookie year. The coaching staff has prioritized developing the full game of this player if they want to keep him at the center position, helping him close in on gaps, using his body to create leverage, and also teaching him about defensive timing with his stick. Because Zegras is shifty and has a quick speed to his game, he can keep up with offensive rushes, and this will give him a competitive advantage once he's able to refine his skills on the defensive end. So to summarize, yes, Trevor Zegras has been a very poor defender in the past, but that's not why he was drafted. Truthfully, he's still below average on the defensive end, but I can see him working hard in this area of his game, which I think is important for any young player. And I think with time, he'll develop better in the defensive end, and this will also help him out with his offensive game once he sort of refines all of these skills. So far, his individual skills and defensive skills have been put into question. But one other thing that seems to negatively surround Zegras is team play and of course team fit. I think this question is less about being a good teammate and more about the Ducks in general and how they have built this forward core. The Ducks currently have the best young forward group in the league, with only teams like Montreal rivaling them for that top spot. With young players like Leo Carlson, Carter Gauthier, and Mason McTavish, the team has built a strong core of players who all have immense offensive talent. But something that people don't criticize enough is that they drafted players who all have a very similar game. The only player who I would describe as a true goal scorer is Gauthier, who at this point is playing with Zegras, but also is having a bit of a slow start to his year. To this point in the season, the Ducks have shuffled around their lineups way too much, and a big reason is what I was talking about earlier. All of these players are way too similar, and this doesn't allow for them to build chemistry or find a good offensive flow once they're put on the ice. They've tried moving Trevor Zegras to the wing to help keep him in their top six, but have also now bumped him down to their third line center position, which all in my opinion is just taking away from his ice time and preventing him from developing at a strong pace. At this point, I feel like it's time for the Ducks to move on from Zegras to add either a traditional goal scorer or someone who just blends in with some of their other players a bit more fluidly. Don't get me wrong, I think he would still be a great player to have on this team if they decide to keep him. But sometimes you just have too many guys who play the same role. And when this happens, most if not all of the players suffer from the limited opportunities that they can be given. So now that we have all of the information in front of us, let's answer the question. Is Trevor Zegras overrated or overhated? I feel like it's honestly more geared towards the overhated side of things than it is the overrated side. I know it seems like a cop-out answer, but I feel like most of the hate that goes towards Trevor Zegras is about the way that he doesn't play the traditional style of hockey that we're used to. A lot of people who like hockey are really set in their ways. They don't like new creative goals, and this is really just a small subset of the community, so don't blow this out of proportion. I've just seen some people say that they really don't like the Michigan. They really don't like the way that some players are being a little bit more individualized or bringing a creative side to the game, where to me this is silly, but I do feel like this kind of gets pushed towards Trevor Zegras a lot. The kid has had a lot of mainstream success since he entered the league, already has an NHL cover athlete title, has some of the flashiest highlight reel goals in the game, and his personality is just goofy. So if you're not someone who likes that side of the NHL, then I could see why you might think he's a little overrated, or maybe why you're sick of seeing him in the mainstream so much. But personally, I just don't think this has anything to do with this game. I think he's already had a somewhat successful career so far with the Ducks, and I'm expecting him to bounce back after this slow start and sort of prove to everyone why he's been so overhyped over the past couple of years once he's able to find his game again. I think as of right now, it's understandable why people are a little bit down on him, but I think at worst, he's like a second line center for most teams. And at best, he could be a first line center for a team once he's able to develop that sort of two-way game that we were talking about earlier. But I really want to know what you guys think. Do you still think that Trevor Zegras is being overrated? Or do you think that a lot of the stuff that goes his way sort of goes to what I was alluding to earlier with people just sort of over-hating the creative style of hockey that he brings to the league? As always, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I want to have a really good discussion about this because I feel like it's very interesting, not only for Trevor Zegras, but just moving forward and how the game develops. As always, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.